And the games, they've kicked off, and it's a French defence from the world champion.
Yeah, and Magnus does this from time to time, not normally in the biggest clashes, not normally when he wants to stay solid. It's often when he wants to try and win games, the French defence. And this will be a surprise to Gukesh, you think?
I think this will be not a massive surprise. I think Gukesh has come prepared for this. I'm very curious what he chooses. Just very quickly, though, that last graphic, there was a certain number in there that spooked me. Giri was only 1677.
It was a typo.
There must have been 2677. That was a quick improvement over 2 years. Yeah, there was a little typo in there for everybody watching.
I'm impressed you noticed.
Yeah, I'm attention to detail.
Yeah, that's good.
And meanwhile, one of the main lines of the French defence, the name of this, is this the classical variation?
Yes.
I think.
This is actually a Ginger GM special, by the way. If Simon was here, he'd be licking his chops because he's had this position a bunch of times, especially with a quick A6, B5. I think that's right up his alley.
Yeah, he's been playing it since he was a teenager himself, Simon Williams, from the black side.
Yeah, I thought you waited a little bit there until white committed the king.
I've actually played this with black. I think I played this against Kostenyuk in Isle of Man. You can check that. You see if that's in the database.
Yeah, as far as I know, this is still quite a well-known position. It's still very theoretical. The one thing you don't want to do, as you guys alluded to, is to castle the king. At the moment with white, you definitely don't want to go queenside because that's where black's pawns are pushing. You might castle there later, but only when the centre has clarified itself. So here, as white, you tend to play a bit of a waiting game. You tend to see what black is going to do first before deciding which side to put your king on. This is, again, as far as I know, one of the most popular moves. Pawn takes pawn. Just, again, asking Magnus Carlsen, are you going to take this pawn back with the black dark-squared bishop? Are you going to take with your knight? Once you have a bit more information, then you can decide when to castle with white. OK, he takes with the bishop, Magnus. Normally, this isn't a good idea. Normally, you want to keep dark-squared bishops on the board as black, because black's light-squared bishop, if you looked at it on the c8 square, it's just locked in. Doesn't have a great future. But because black is a bit cramped in the middle of the board, you have to just trade off pieces. You need a bit more space. Otherwise, your pieces will be fighting for the same squares. So still very standard stuff here. And now I think white can castle. White's queen can also move. I've seen that one before. A bunch of options here for Gukesh, but both players have done their homework, clearly.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, just sliding the queen 2 squares across to attack the knight is the most popular move. This one was number 2 in the list of choices.
So white just brings his bishop out, and he's keeping Magnus guessing now, Gukesh. Magnus, as black, he's going to be thinking, OK, are you going to go kingside? Are you going to go queenside? Which way are you going with the white king? And it's hard to formulate a plan. As black as well, you have to make that decision. Does your king stay in the centre? Does your king go to its kind of usual home over there on the right? It's lots of strategic choices which will have long-term consequences. Usually white has a small advantage in these types of positions because if you look at the centre, white has this pawn on e5, the furthest advanced pawn out of any. That clamps down on black's position. Also the dark squares. White has pretty decent control over the dark squares in the centre.
Yeah.
And black brings his queen out. A waiting game.
Definitely a waiting game. And I just wanted to add one very important point to why also white is slightly better. I mean, take a look at the light square bishop that black has. It's bad. And this is always a point of contention between players who play the Caro-Kann, like me, and the French defence, and it's like a running joke. You know, and we have all sorts of kind of memes going on about this bishop. Like, there's one that kind of goes, you know, how can you tell? Well, actually, because there's all these openings, and they go, oh, French defence is missing, and there we see the pawn attacking, and everyone goes, well, where's French defence? And some Caro-Kann goes, wait for it. The light squared bishop is bad. And the French defence suddenly appears from nowhere and goes, no. I think you'll find it's a chessboard joke. I don't know why I'm going on about it. I found it very funny.
That's the big difference, right, between the French defence and most openings. You just have one bad piece. And I think this is Magnus's idea to try and trade off his worst piece. And, I mean, he can play it now, for example. He does. So that's why we talk about bad pieces, because if you figure out which pieces are your worst, then you can come up with easy plans. And he wants to trade it off for white's very strong bishop in the centre. If the bishops disappear, Black has a very healthy position. The knight can jump into the center. Black has gained a lot of space on this side of the board, and because the center's blocked, he doesn't actually need to rush to castle his king. Another thing we've seen from Magnus in recent months, he definitely doesn't rush to castle. Keeps his opponent guessing.
So should Gukesh now take that bishop, or should he wait?
Good question. I guess you can take, or there is a bit of pressure on this bishop. It's attacked by Black's knight and bishop, so I guess you could... I was going to say just defend it, but Gukesh, he's a very aggressive player when he wants to be, and he's pushing forward. He's going for the Black king already. So he's trying to open up lines. The white queen and rook both sit on this f-file. So if by pushing this pawn forward, he's trying to open things up.
And isn't this the strategy that's given Prague's much success against Magnus, just attacking him?
And it worked for Erigaisi yesterday. Erigaisi could have gone on the defense, that was fine, but he went on the attack and it worked. He beat Magnus. What do you think, Lawrence? Strong move?
Well, I mean, it's a positive move. It's a move that says, I'm not really afraid. I'm not going to be too passive against you. Because that's where Magnus really does the damage, when you're overly scared of him. When you're on the front foot against Magnus, you've got all the chances. He still has to find accurate moves. Now, of course, he's very capable of finding those moves, but he's still human after all. And this is the move you really want to play if you can play it in a French. So I love the move. I don't know objectively how... Well, I mean, the bar says it's slightly better for Black, but I don't know about that. Yeah, it's just too random.
It's also theory.
Is it?
It's been played before. Yeah, I mean, we have people like Laurent Fresinet playing it, Mathieu Bertel, a Polish grandmaster, Mashta Vasilis, Demetrius, a Greek grandmaster, and Robert Fontaine, so another French grandmaster. So, yeah, everyone is, challenging Black, because I guess you have to, because if Black is just trading off those light-squared bishops, then he's kind of maximised absolutely everything that he wants from the opening. And
Jovanka, so pawn takes pawn was played by Magnus. Fair enough, capturing a pawn. Has this been seen before? And if so, what kind of scores are we used to seeing? Does White win a lot of games here? Black?
OK, so here are the stats. So pawn takes pawn, very much the top move. And it's a 37% win rate for White, 44% for Black.
Wow.
So, yeah, the stats are not in White's favour.
No.
Yeah, maybe Gukesh has other ideas. Maybe he hasn't analysed those numbers. I mean, I guess White here can take the pawn back. Or I was about to suggest as well, this knight move, very natural. Now you've temporarily sacrificed a pawn, but Black now has an isolated pawn in the centre. If you can capture this one, you'll gain time as well against the Black queen. Very tense.
Wow.
Let's go back to the players. I like Gukesh's opening choice, though. He's not scared of Magnus. And just defending that pawn with the Black knight.
Let's also take a look at their Aimchess head-to-head stats, Gukesh and Magnus Carlsen. We do know Magnus Carlsen is fantastic in the endgame, but Gukesh, definitely not bad himself. And I actually noticed he's quite close to Magnus on most stats. How sensational is that for a 16-year-old?
I mean, yeah, it's very promising signs. I guess the biggest difference is just the endgame, but also the resourcefulness. That's something that will come with age for Gukesh. Endgames, you'll have more experience, you'll study them more the older you get. But also resourcefulness, you get a bit trickier. The older you get a bit more wily, and you learn how to set practical problems for your opponent in tough positions. So, yeah, impressive. What do you think, Lawrence?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, to play like this at 16 is just... It's mind-blowing. He's just, as we saw in the graphic in the intro, just a couple of points off Wei Yi's record. But he's got a bit more longevity about him, it seems. Wei Yi's an interesting story, which we can discuss another day, because when Wei Yi got to that rating at 16, everybody was saying that this kid is going to be... And he didn't manage to find that next level, for whatever reason. But you have a feeling that with Gukesh and the system and the support network that he has, not just, even so with the tweets, right? He's got the whole country behind him. So I think having that support system is actually massive. And... he's got the talent, and look at him. He's doing a, he's trying to literally rip Magnus's heart out with these moves. He's F5, E6, so he's trying to, I mean, fair play. Yeah. You've got to give him credit.
Yeah, definitely. And, well, we see Magnus just try to lock up the position by advancing the pawn. And Lawrence kind of also mentioned the support system. And I just kind of also wanted to talk about a story that Gukesh said. When he lost that critical game to Abdusatorov, he left the playing venue in tears and he was just absolutely distraught. And late in the night, he got a telephone call from Vishy Anand,
Wow.
Yeah.
who said, "Hey, you know, can I come over?" And he came over to Gukesh's room, and they had a chat. And Anand just gave him some advice, showed him some games where he too had been in that situation where he'd overpressed. And I thought that is such a beautiful touch, actually, that the legend himself, you know, who's not only inspired this new generation, has actually come and helped them.
Yeah.
I really appreciated this story, and I thought, you know, it's fantastic.
What a team effort.
Yeah, it's no coincidence that India are producing all these youngsters when you have personalities like that who are willing to help.
Absolutely.
A lot of selfless coaches out there who put in their time for Gukesh, for Prag, who've kind of made them who they are today. And meanwhile, in the game, like you said, Lawrence, I mean, it's just so impressive what he's doing, Gukesh. He does need a follow-up, however. He's gone down. So what would we be thinking here? How does White find compensation for the pawn he's sacrificed?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the first move that comes to mind for me is I feel like I want to take on a6.
Get rid of those bishops.
Yeah, just importantly, of course, he can't take with the knight, so he has to take with the rook. Can't take with the queen either. So rook takes. Yep. And then the natural follow is just to put the rook on d1 here to try and win back a pawn. It's not. I'm not in love with it. I don't look at it and think, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I also don't exactly know what you should be doing here with White.
Yeah, this is one option. You're right, what else? I mean, also I would be tempted to put my knight in the middle of the board, but...
Doesn't actually do anything.
Doesn't actually create anything. Black can probably just castle at some point. And yeah, also Black at some point can put his knight in the center of the board. I'm not sure who that favors. Yeah, this is a critical moment. Gukesh needs a plan. It also crossed my mind that you can kind of go into the edge of the board and start trying to attack some pawns, but again, the question is whether Black can castle safely. I don't think White has any way to kind of set up the queen and attack this pawn. You're just not in time, unfortunately, because Black has discovered check along this diagonal, hitting the queen as well. So yeah, it's definitely no obvious moves shouting out, kind of screaming out to be played right now. This is one, but what else? Frank, have we seen this position before?
We have seen it. I mean, there's only been a handful of games, but in that one particular game, White just centralized the rook. So, yeah, it's trying to do the idea that Lawrence spoke about.
Yeah, so indirectly attacking this pawn.
Sorry, importantly, bishop takes d3, rook takes d3 is the idea. You don't have to take back with the pawn.
Yeah,
take with the rook.
Make use of this pin. Black Knight can't recapture, and yeah, this looks like a better version of the variation we looked at, just because now this one is attacked twice. You can defend it with the Black Rook, but White can keep piling up on this pawn if he wishes. So this looks like maybe Gukesh's safest option, or at least one of the most sensible. But he's thinking in this position whether to bring his rook to the center. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Wei Yi there, and Wei Yi's still very strong, of course, but he's still the same rating, and I think that's a cautionary tale that these top players, they still have to keep working. Not everyone's going to hit the top level. We mentioned Gukesh, Erigaisi, Prag, but maybe one of them will hit 2800. Not necessarily, I mean, maybe all of them will hit 2800, but there's no guarantee for any. And I think it's nice to have the rivalry as well, just especially within India, they're kind of pushing each other to greater heights. Okay, he plays a very mysterious rook move.
That's a very Karpovian move, that is. That is Karpov to a T. Doesn't work, but it, you know, the spirit was there.
Yeah, I mean, we all, I think, understand the idea behind this move. He's trying to persuade Magnus to play bishop takes bishop, then after White recaptures, the White rook on the c-file becomes open, but Magnus is never, ever going to capture that bishop.
No.
Very strange. You're asking your opponent to do something, but you're making it pretty obvious what your plan is. And Magnus just immediately castles.
In move 19, another game where he castles very late.
Yeah.
Yeah. You normally don't want to castle past move 10 or 12. That's what I was taught, at least when I was young. But yeah, It's strange. Do you think that was a mouse slip by Gukesh? Do you think he wanted to put that rook on the D file? No. But surely you have a plan now.
It does kind of feel like a mouse slip, to be honest with you, because...
I think we would have seen a bigger reaction from him if he mouse slipped. He's looked calm the whole way through, so...
So where did he want to put it?
Probably the square he chose. But maybe one square to the right, so the D1 square, that's the most natural, at least, by far.
And why is that more natural than the C square? Both are covered by a pawn in front of it.
Yeah, so if we jump in just to show this, so in this position...
you said D.
Yeah, the D file.
Okay.
So we were advocating the D file just because next move, for example, if black did the same as he did in the game, if Magnus castled, now at the very least you could play bishop takes bishop, black has to recapture with the rook, and now the rook is actually hitting a pawn, so you can actually regain a pawn. And here you have probably just equal chances. You hit the knight, you hit this pawn. Black can, for example, capture this guy, but we'll just see a bunch of exchanges and probably an equal endgame. So Gukesh, by putting his rook on the different square, the square he chose, if we go back to the game position, what's it doing here? Magnus castled. If Magnus had played bishop takes bishop, now we finally understand why the rook is here, because after pawn takes, suddenly the rook comes to life, hits this knight, using this pin as well. But Magnus, of course, he'll never, ever take this bishop. What's your rook doing here?
So is it kind of protecting that bishop then?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, he pushes forward.
Oh, this is the idea.
This is the only plan, I think, to open up the rook. Yeah, so this knight is not actually attacking the bishop because of a pin along this diagonal. The black knight can't move because the black queen would drop. And if bishop takes bishop, now we see, again, an attack on this knight. Magnus, though, gets out of the pin. And not just does he get out of the pin, but he attacks this bishop, he attacks this knight. Oof, looks very strong for black.
Magnus is in his element.
Yeah, just one... I think Gukesh was trying to be a bit too clever. Maybe he should have just kept things simple. Okay, bishop takes bishop has been played. The rook recaptures. Still a problem with this knight. Still a problem with knight takes pawn. Still a problem with the knight coming into the center. And black's a pawn up.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also noticed is that white is really lacking choice because, as you've highlighted, black's pieces are very active and you can't just like casually move back, retreat the knight that's under attack because the knight jumps into the D3 square and, well, that's going to favour Magnus big time. And so you can't do that. So you're either going to have to shuffle a piece over to protect that knight. You can't even throw in intermediate moves like pawn takes pawn and go, hey, look, I'm attacking your knight because still the white knight is under attack and you can just recapture the pawn.
Yeah, you can recapture the pawn. I think maybe even stronger is to put the black knight into the center, hit the queen. The queen has to use this square to protect her knight. And now you just simply capture. And like you say, Ivanka, just this one attacked. This pawn looks very strong, but actually it could just drop off at some point in the next few moves. And okay, we see this variation on the board. I think we'll see this position in a moment. Gukesh needs to move his queen in the game position, and he's just going to be a pawn down. I'm slightly surprised the computer says it's this much of an advantage, but it just must be because white has nothing for his pawn. And yeah, we do see this position now. This is a threat. Sometimes black can even start pushing pawns where he's strongest. Okay, Gukesh centralizes, and I guess the acid test now is just take another pawn. Go 2 pawns up for Magnus.
Yeah.
Looks possible.
So it's looking really good for Magnus now and really bad for Gukesh.
Yeah, I think he's just lost control. He chose the wrong plan. And it was an interesting plan, but it was just a bit slow.
Look at the clocks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like this rook AC1 move. I think Gukesh had to play a lot more simply. Rook AD1, try and win the pawn back. Wasn't much. Black was still doing fine, but now the onus is very much on the young man to prove what he's got for the 2 pawns.
You called it a Karpovian move. What is that? What was Karpov's style that makes this a Karpovian move?
A lot of Karpov's moves were what are known as prophylactic moves, and what that means is anticipating what your opponent wants to do. So he was if we go back to that position, David, we'll probably have to show that. He was anticipating a trade on D3. So if he's anticipating that the C line is going to get open, then having the rook there already benefits him because he's already got a rook in perfect placement. But it didn't quite work here. The spirit was right, but the execution wasn't quite right. So,
But now the rook is free.
Yeah.
And it is in that very nice 7th heaven.
yeah.
On the 7th rank.
The problem is that black's pieces are all very well coordinated, and if you really dissect the position, you'll see it's just the rook that's attacking a knight, and none of white's other pieces are actually remotely involved in the attack.
Yeah, at the moment, black has perfect centralization as well,
Sorry,
with the pawn, queen, and knight.
Just saw that tweet where someone described me as the Susie Dent of chess. So,
Apparently, I'm the Rachel Riley. Wow.
I wish.
and the rook defends the knight.
It's a very English comment there, sorry, Kai. About Countdown, the TV show. So the rook now defends the black knight. How can Gukesh keep the momentum going before it's too late?
Oh!
Whoa!
What happened?
Something's happened. It did feel a bit wrong for Magnus to play this move. I actually thought Magnus had something a bit stronger, but what is in the air? We have to figure it out.
Rook takes e7 is a threat, and queen d8 wins.
Oh, he's brought his queen forward. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And actually, if we look at this, if the knight moves, suddenly there's either a knight h5 or queen b7 shot, and that's just over.
So, for example, this, and you come in, and you get to the black king.
What?
That's just like that.
No reaction on Magnus, but he obviously has blundered big time. Is he seeing it now?
I think he's starting to realise it's not actually obvious. I mean, if you showed me this position, even after white brings the queen in, I would be thinking, OK, there must be a defence for black. But the computer confirms that there isn't one. And just to show the threat, as you guys mentioned, if black, for example, takes a pawn, then white will play rook takes knight. And actually, this is back rank checkmate. The king is trapped. And, OK, you can throw a rook in the way, but it doesn't change anything. This is checkmate on the next move. And this is
yeah,
just a killer threat.
Look at Magnus's face. It's dawned on him. It took him also about 20, 30 seconds to realise, hold on a second, am I busted here? And ironically, in the previous move, he was completely winning. He just had to play knight g6.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the previous move.
Yeah,
just
knight g6. And I guess the difference here is that if knight h5 here...
Maybe black can go on the attack before white does.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you just take this pawn, you threaten checkmate. It still looks a bit scary that you allow the white rook to check, but maybe black's
You're just there.
quicker.
Just in time.
Just in time, but he was too slow. He played a defensive move in this position.
But going back to the game position, I mean, there we see Magnus with his head in his hands. OK, he's dawning on him. But what about if the king just protects the knight? I mean, where is the killer blow?
If the king defends.
So the rook takes knight. The whole idea is you just go, well, rook takes rook, and...
And now you're ready to block any checks with your own rook. Still feels very shaky.
It feels like, you know, it is hanging by a thread, but where is the knockout punch?
Yeah, so you're suggesting this move, putting the king on f8. Oof.
You can also play knight d3 here. Is the queen trapped?
Wow. Lawrence, the queen is actually trapped in the centre.
And the queen on b6 protects the e6 pawn. That's that's a crucial thing, yeah.
Oh, so that's the real threat.
That's the
There's
actual
two
threat.
threats. Yeah.
And that's where Magnus is now doing his favourite, telling himself off.
But it's too late.
It's too late. It's really over. There's no saving this because knight d3 as the secondary threat is to win the queen, which is quite good. And the queen, Kaya, nothing more pleasurable than trapping a queen in the middle of the board, because you don't expect the queen to have no squares in the middle of the board, but stone cold in the centre. It's just over.
Literally every square is covered, right?
Yeah.
These squares are covered by the white knight and queen. This is covered by the white queen. These are all covered by white's knights, and these are all covered too. There's literally no safe square. She's gone.
Wow.
That's so rare.
16 years old, about to beat Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, there's no coming back from this. Sometimes, you know, like even yet. Do you remember on day one where Magnus had the bad position against Kama, right? And it was losing, but the counter chances were still there.
Yeah.
This is just not a position where any counter chances exist. And you can see him, he's really annoyed because he knows the opening went well.
He knows he's going to be on the front page of many Indian newspapers tomorrow.
Is he
Yeah,
the
he
youngest
loses this
player ever to have beaten Magnus?
I'm checking.
It's possible, yeah.
Because he's
possible.
Gukesh is just 16 years old.
0.34. And how
Yeah.
old was Prague?
How
He was
old?
16 point something.
Right.
And Gukesh's
falling.
birthday is in May, if that helps. May 2006.
Yeah, no, so we know he is 16.34. So that will be younger because Prague beat Magnus for the first time in February, was it?
Roughly.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's
roughly.
born in August.
Okay, so it will be a
So
new
there will
record.
be, yeah.
Wow.
Gukesh
Yeah.
will be the youngest player in history to beat Magnus Carlsen after he became world champion. Incredible, these young Indians.
I know, we
And
can
Magnus
see
is
the
just-
reaction from him. You know, he's just cursing. You know, he knows it's all over. It's gone. One slip up. That was it. And just like a house of cards, his position just completely fell apart.
And he had 12 minutes when he blundered. I mean, he would have known he was doing well, Magnus. You can see he knew he was almost winning, or at least a pawn or two up for nothing. And yeah, we've all been there, we've all blundered, but it is a bit careless maybe to blunder without really pausing for thought, without looking for the opponent's moves, without calculating.
Oh, he just wants to hide Magnus Carlsen. He hates the way he made that blunder. And imagine for Gukesh sitting there waiting now for 6 minutes to make his move.
It's a shame his camera's so dark, because
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen his facial expression.
Magnus is giving us a lot of facial expressions.
Magnus
though.
is going through the whole range of emotions, but Gukesh, well, he's just calm and well spotted. You know, fair play to Gukesh for just seizing this opportunity when it was presented to him.
Because was that difficult? Obviously, when Magnus made this blunder, Gukesh has answered with a move.
I mean, it only becomes obvious once you see it, really. I mean, it took us a while to realise, especially the second threat. One threat was obvious, rook takes knight. That one is crystal clear. Maybe Magnus even spotted that, but I think he must have missed this second threat of trapping the black queen. And yeah, I mean, even when Gukesh played that move with 5 minutes or 6 minutes left, when Gukesh played that move, he won't have been 100% sure he's winning. He would have thought, OK, I've got two threats. Maybe the opponent has some way to deal with it. But now he sees Magnus stop for 6-7 minutes. He's going to be, I mean, firstly calculating, realising black has no defence, but he's going to be full of confidence that he's going to finish this off now. And I'm just trying to find a way that defends even a few more moves, and I just can't.
There's just no move. It's just really over. And I think Magnus will actually resign.
Immediately,
Yeah, I think he's just going to resign. I think he's just... very rarely have I seen him so irritated.
I just checked the computer evaluations to see whether there was any way to extract the queen from danger. Nope. Basically, he's saying, yeah, nothing you can do. Eventually, you're going to have to
he does
just
make
play
a-
queen takes rook.
He does make a move.
But now rook takes knight,
Rook takes E7, yes.
as Lawrence pointed out earlier, that's on the board, and that's going to be just devastating for the world champion.
Yeah, just to show once more, this rook is poisoned. It cannot be captured because of checkmate in 2 moves. This is deadly. This is a check. The black king has no escape squares. Thanks to this white pawn, actually. This white pawn doing a good job of cutting it off, and checkmate. So Magnus had to run away with this rook, but now he's a whole piece down, and the attack is likely to continue. I mean, there's surely going to be an attack against the black king on one of these 2 squares.
You can offer a trade of queens.
Yeah.
Try to put it in the bank, as I like to say.
Do we want to trade off the queens? Do we not want to go for checkmate?
I like
Magnus
that.
swirling in his chair.
Doesn't even want to look at this, Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, so you guys are suggesting, for example, this move.
Yeah.
Firstly, queen trade. Secondly, going for this pawn.
Just remember that there's a pawn on e6. Can also become a second queen.
Yeah, maybe this is a good move. Maybe Magnus
Looks
is...
like a great move to me.
Yeah, maybe Magnus's one trap is after queen to this square.
Yeah.
He'll give a check, I guess, and maybe he'll take the white knight. Because if the queen is captured now, then suddenly it's white who gets checkmated along the back rank. But also just to show that this is just one check, the black king can suddenly hide in the corner, but Gukesh won't fall for that one. And yeah, in the current position, this looks like a immediate win for Gukesh. queen's off, you'll just win with your extra knight. Maybe there are other ways. You just have to make sure you don't allow a counterattack against the white king.
Shocking, really.
4 minutes, he should have this in the bag now.
Yeah.
Gukesh.
I mean, he's going to be... He understands he has to still tread a little carefully here, even though the machine is saying plus 8.3. A bit of care is required. And look, I mean, the kid is... he's good. I mean, he just finds the way. And here, actually, Magnus is obliged to trade queens. Queen e3, check king h1, and there's no follow-up, actually.
Yeah. The key difference now is that the white queen protects her knight on f4, right? So that trick we saw in the last variation just doesn't work.
Also, I want to point out, like, let's say queen e3, check king h1, and let's say rook takes b2, just to try and get a nice little mate in 4 here. Rook takes h7.
We're probably going to see it, Lawrence.
See this, Lawrence.
The king is going to go to the corner, and, well, since you're a piece down, you might as well
For example, going for checkmate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rook takes pawn.
And now a lovely rook takes pawn again, just removing a key defender, knight g6.
And it's
Queen
over.
f7 is a mate.
It is over. Magnus Carlsen loses to another Indian teenager. It's a massive win.